Greetings, my friends. It's your old friend Pandora, and I've come to make some cane with you today. I'm using this gorgeous Sculpey Primo Peacock and Sculpey Primo White and my lovely bright green pearl. I made 6 of those little square bars of the peacock, 4 of the white, and I'll make 6 of the green. And we're going to put them together in a very surprising way with a very surprising result. So I'm making a sheet. I started with 2 packages because I just like to make the sheet preparation easy for myself without having to stop and start. But you don't need this much clay for this project. So I'm putting these together, and I'm going to put them through my clay machine on the biggest setting. Now my widest setting is a 0. Yours might be a 1. Or if you have a different machine, it might even be a 9 or 10. So check out your widest setting and use that. I'll put all this together, roll it with my Sculpey roller, and put it through my clay machine. We don't have to do a lot of preparation to this clay. You'll see that it's already soft. If yours is not, you may have to condition it more. So I'm folding this because what I need to make these square rods are 2 thicknesses of the thickest setting. So you have the one thickest setting folded in half. That's going to make them high enough to be squares. These are about 3 inches long. I work in 3s, 6s, and 9s the majority of the time. It fits the tools that I use, and it makes a nice, predictable size on your cane. Of course, you can make that smaller or bigger. I recently made this cane with these pinks. Isn't that pretty? French pink, wild orchid, and igloo. And I'm going to use that same pattern today to create this green and blue one. So I'm putting them together according to that pattern that I have, and let me be sure that you know I didn't make up that pattern. I saw it years ago in a book, and I just loved it, and it was made with extruded squares. Well, of course, they're very tiny, so for the cane I want to make with you to make the quantity for my project, I just kind of made my own squares, so they wouldn't be the little bitty extruded ones. But thank you to whoever published that. You know, I looked everywhere to give that person credit, and I can't find that original post that I saw. I think it was in a book. Anyway, that's my pattern, but you can change your pattern up. You can make this cane 100 times, and it'll turn out 100 ways, and it's the most fun thing ever. You see, my colors are really coordinated with each other, and that way when I make scrap, which this kind of caning makes some scrap because you change the shape so much. The scrap is really beautiful too. So I've got this piece of plexiglass I'm very grateful to have. You may have something you like to use to mash down on a cane. It could be a wood block. It could be a sheet. I've even used my slats that I used to make, cuff bracelets and stuff with. But what you need to do is put some even pressure on the corner. See the corner I'm using? Got to be like that. So you got a corner that's got blue, white, and green showing. Now, believe me, I've done this cane and accidentally compressed the wrong side of it. You don't even want to know. So we're taking that, standing it up on its corner, and putting pressure on it. Take your time. I've left some of this part in for you to see, but it took a little bit longer than this. I just don't want to bore you too much. I'm using my big roller on that. It's a great big one. And I want to get as much weight on it as I can. You can also, if you're kind of weakling like me, you can stand up, and that'll give you a lot more pressure to press down with. And as you start to get in the home stretch here, you want to start making those ends as even as you can to reduce waste. I'm back with my Sculpey roller. Sometimes I use my big roller. But we're going to get that down thin enough that we can put it in our clay machine without damaging it. We're closing in on it here. You'll see about how far you need to go with this. I'll give you an idea. Okay, I'm stretching those ends out a little bit, and then I'll trim them when I've stretched them out about as much as I can. It looks like that, it's fine. Yours looks like that. If it's close, it's fine. This is a super forgiving cane, and I think you'll be so surprised how it turns out, because it doesn't look anything like squares. So I put it through the machine on my thickest setting, and now I'm going to make a stack of pieces that are cut about, I think those are about 1.5 inches wide. So now I've got a stack like that, starting to look a little bit more like something, huh? Now, this is the part that is not intuitive at all, and that is I need a tall triangle out of that. So, you want the white on top for this one, but you could try it with the darker color on top. My white needs to be on top, so I need to compress it and work with it and be patient until that shape that you saw becomes a triangle. And you'll see when you're doing it, it just doesn't seem like that's what you would do. So I'm getting it kind of evened up enough that I can cut it and recombine it. Okay, I want to make sure it's about the right size. When I say right size, that means easy to cut in half, I'm going to mark it because I don't want to waste too much. Now I'm going to flip one side upside down. And this really starts getting you going where you want to go with this cane because, as we said, we don't want a bunch of squares. We've already eliminated that possibility. We also don't want just a bunch of lines. I want a fluttery, kind of feathery effect. And you'll see that in the end cane. You can imagine this cane in warm colors, some yellow and red. It could be beautiful. And you can put as many colors in there as you want to. If you make that same pattern over and over in a dozen colors, that's going to, it's going to occupy you for, months.
Yeah.
And you saw how pretty it was with that, those pinks, a wild orchid and that French pink. Souffle is great for this. Very yielding to the touch. And I think it works just as well as Primo for this kind of a cane. So I'm getting that to be a square. And I want it to be a square so that I can make it longer and put it back together. And I'm doing it just like that. Remember, the clay is not the boss of us. So yeah, a minute ago it was a tall rectangle. But we don't care about that. We want it to be a square. A square is what's going to work for us to make our pattern.
Yeah.
Kind of go along and sharpen the corners as I go. You wouldn't need to, but the reason I do that is because it causes me to touch the cane in all the different spots. And the heat of my hands and the friction motion, this makes it a little bit easier to reduce. If it wavers or sucks in on the edges a little bit, part of reshaping causes some distortion that pushes outward. Slice that off nice and cleanly whenever you feel that you need to. You don't want to overdo it, but hang on to those pieces and set them aside because I've made some gorgeous scrap pieces with this leftover clay. Those colors are never not pretty. And I'll show that to you later if you want. But you don't want to smash it together. You don't want to blend it right away. You can always do that in the end and make a beautiful kind of minty turquoise. So for now, we're just patiently extending this square and make it long enough for us to work with comfortably. After you roll on your squares, you can try a couple of things that really work. One of them is just plain stretching them, pulling them, evenly. And you can kind of give them a little twist sometimes. So I'm sorry I went fast there. I cut that cane in half and I put it back together. And I'm making it into a triangle. So we're going to go square to triangle, triangle to square in canes like this, because you see that we don't blend or anything. Our whole purpose in this is just taking what we already have and reshaping it till it becomes completely different than we started with. I'm going to cut that in half. See if we like it. Okay, so it's starting to change. It's becoming more floral, kind of a little bit more exotic looking. And that's what we want. Starting to get our feathery effect.
Yeah.
And I've made that triangle into a square. And when I just jump to that, all you do is just do it. You put your triangles together and you start manipulating them, bending them, flattening them back into the shape that we need to continue. Sharpening my corners so I don't get, gaps when I put it together. I think that looks pretty cool. I'm going to cut that one in half. We're really almost done.
Yeah.
I'm kind of careful with my marking because I'm not kidding you. I could just make a whole video about all the bad cuts I've made by guesstimating and eyeballing. That I do not have that talent. So even when I measure, sometimes they're still not right. Okay, so now look. It's just getting so nice. It's getting so exotic. This one I didn't take down real small because I was just happy with it. But you could take that down to any scale you want. You might be making, earrings or pendants. So it could go that way. See?
That's.
And as you extend this cane, you're going to see all those sides in their own configuration anyway. But you can start it out whichever one pleases you the most. I like this because in the end, I like the way those other sides look alternating in the pattern. See those little scraps up in the corner? They're golden. They make the best scrap ever. So there's your cane as it turned out, and I'll show it to you put together. Oh, looky. Isn't that great? And it doesn't look anything like squares, and it wasn't very hard. So I use this particular part of it, that's 16 slices, to make a bowl. And that's why I didn't want it to get too small. I kind of like the scale of that size cane to that little bowl that I had. If you measure from one edge of that bowl over the back to the other side, it's right about 5.5 inches. So be thinking about that when you build your design sheet.
Yeah.
And see how thin that is? I cut those pretty thin because I leave the glass in my bowls. I'm not worried about stability. I just want it to look a certain way.
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up to the edges and trimming it. You're always watching for air bubbles. If you were to get an air bubble, it's not the end of the world, but you can get them out because you can really see them this way. If you don't want to leave the glass in, you can make a really interesting decorative exterior, or you can use another sheet like this one. I leave the glass in so that it's I can serve candies and things in it, and I wash it by hand like I would a vase or a statue. Take good care of it. I put a little rim of UV resin around the very top edge, just a teeny bit to seal the edges. But you know what? I've never had one delaminate. I'm sure if I took a tool and ran it around the edge and tried to dislodge it, I could, but I'm not doing that. I've made probably between 60 and 70 of those, and that's just this year. So none of them have ever come undone. We trim it up. I kind of rough trim it like I showed you there, and then I pinch along the edge to make it nice and even. And now I'm just hunting for bubbles that I can feel. I can take them out.
Yeah.
I push them toward the top, and then trim one last time. And look, I have a nice bowl.